Claude Opus 4.7 is here. Opus is my favorite family of models, and now we have the new version, and it is a major improvement. And that's kind of weird because we have Mythos that was just announced last week, but they said, no, this model's too powerful to release publicly yet. But then they release Opus 4.7, which is a huge step towards the capability of Mythos. And so we're going to compare the two because I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, where's the line in the sand? Is it the fact that Mythos is a brand new training run? Is it the fact that it's rumored to be the 10 trillion parameter model, whereas the Opus family of models is a relatively smaller model? And if they keep going from 4.5 to 4.6 to 4.7 for Opus, what happens at 4.8 and 4.9? How close can we push Opus to getting to those Mythos scores before they say, hey, we can't release that anymore? I'm going to talk about all these questions. Let me show you the results. And the first thing you need to see is that they actually put Mythos preview on the benchmark graph. The models we're going to be comparing, 4.6, 4.7, Mythos, Gemini 3.1 Pro, and GPT 5.4. Look how much of a jump in SweBench Pro there was from 4.6 to 4.7, 53.4 on 4.6 to 64.3 on 4.7. That is a massive jump. And it is halfway between Opus 4.6 and Mythos Preview. When we saw Mythos Preview last week, we looked at it and we said, wow, a 25-point jump. It is incredibly good at coding, thus it's incredibly good at cybersecurity and hacking, and so they decided not to release it. It is just so much better. But now we have Opus 4.7. A single dot iteration got us from 53 to 64, an over 10-point jump and nearly halfway to Mythos Preview. So again, where's that line? I don't actually think they have a number in mind. Really, when I woke up today and I saw that they dropped Opus 4.7, it got me questioning everything I thought about Anthropic. Anthropic not releasing Mythos and talking it up as though it is the God model. Maybe that's actually a marketing play. For SweBench verified, we go from 80 to 87, which is nearly the 94% for Mythos Preview. For all of these benchmarks, you can just tell what they're focused on. Coding models. Build the best coding model, sell it to enterprise, make a bunch of money, use that money to buy more GPU capacity, use the best coding model to build the next best coding model with all of that GPU capacity. Recursive self-improvement comes from building the best coding model. And also the best enterprise use case is coding. So it goes hand in hand. Make all the money, build the best models, build the next best models. Humanity's last exam, we have a 7-point jump with no tools and a modest 1.5% with tools. We have agentic search, which actually took a hit. It went from 83.7 to 79.3. Currently, GPT 5.4 scores the highest score on agentic search at 89.3. Agentic computer use, a very, very important benchmark, coming in at 78%, just under the Mythos preview of 79.6%. Why are they not releasing Mythos? Here is the key benchmark. Cybersecurity vulnerability reproduction. They actually had a decrease. Now, this might explain what I am talking about. They went from 73.8 to 73.1. Did they intentionally degrade the model in this capability? If you look at the Mythos preview, it is at 83.1. That is a big jump. That is a 10% jump. Maybe they thought, okay, let's not improve it there. In fact, let's degrade the performance on cybersecurity vulnerability reproduction because we don't want people having that ability. My understanding is it's very hard to pinpoint one specific thing about a model and say degrade that without affecting other parts of the model in ways that were unintended. Visual reasoning got a massive jump. That is something they call out in the blog post of what 4.7 is so much better at than 4.6. Here's what I think is actually happening. Mythos is a new family of models. It is rumored to be the 10 trillion parameter model, and they probably thought, okay, that's the line in the sand. That is the line in which we are not going to release this model publicly, at least not yet. Every iteration we have on Opus, which is their previous training run, likely a 10th of the size of Mythos, so 1 trillion or somewhere around there. They've had Opus 4.5, 4.6, and now 4.7. They've extracted major gains from the model from that original training run. Now, when you look at Mythos, which is a new training run, the 10 trillion training run. This is their first version. Imagine Mythos 1.1 or Mythos 1.2. Every iteration after that is just going to get better. They're training it right now. They are post-training. They're fine-tuning. They are RLing it. Can you hear those GPUs going burr? They just built this new model, 10 trillion, and it's still very raw, but even in its raw form, it is better than the latest Opus model. Opus 4.7 is a notable improvement on 4.6 in advanced software engineering. Like I said, this is their focus as a company. This is their flywheel. This is why they now have beaten OpenAI in revenue. They're at 30 billion ARR, some ridiculous number, seemingly doubling every month or two. Insane to see this flywheel in action. With particular gains on the most difficult tasks. Opus 4.7 handles complex, long-running tasks with rigor and consistency, pays precise attention to instructions, and devises ways to verify its own outputs before reporting back. Great. As I said, they really put an emphasis on vision. The model also has substantially better vision. It can see images in greater resolution. It's more tasteful and creative when completing professional tasks. This is an important one because as good as GPT 5.4 is, it is still not good at front-end design. I use it for mostly back-end, but I always go back to Opus 4.6 to be honest for most tasks, but definitely for front-end tasks. Producing higher quality interfaces, slides, and docs. We are going to be testing that together in a moment. Although it is less broadly capable than our most powerful model, Mythos, it shows better results than Opus 4.6 across a range of benchmarks. They actually talk a little bit about their thinking, although it's still kind of blurry, about why they did not release Mythos, but they did release 4.7. Listen to this. So last week we announced Project Glasswing, highlighting the risks and benefits of AI models for cybersecurity. We stated that we would keep Claude Mythos preview release limited and test new cyber safeguards on less capable models first. Opus 4.7 is the first such model. Its cyber capabilities are not as advanced as those of Mythos. And here they actually admit, indeed, during its training, we experimented with efforts to differentially reduce these capabilities. They are actually intentionally degrading the model in certain areas, which I actually think is going to come back to bite them later. We are releasing Opus 4.7 with safeguards that automatically detect and block requests that indicate prohibited or high-risk cybersecurity uses. And what we learn from this, we will apply to Mythos. There is this common sentiment in the AI industry that the only way to defeat a bad model is with a better model. And maybe that's the approach that they're taking here. They said, okay, we baked up this new 10 trillion parameter Mythos model that is incredible in its first iteration, better than Opus ever can be. And we're gonna put that to the test by allowing Mythos to basically oversee Opus. And they're probably testing that right now. They're saying, okay, Mythos, make sure Opus doesn't try any hacking, for example. And so this whole notion of a bad model only being able to be defeated by a better model is going to be put to the test right now. Things to keep in mind as you're using Opus 4.7. So first, it is much better at instruction following, which is kind of wild because Opus 4.6 was really good. And in fact, you had to be really nuanced about the way that you crafted your prompts to Opus 4.6. The prompting best practices from Anthropic explicitly said, don't use all caps, don't use negatives like don't do this or don't do that, literally what I'm doing right now. And instead just say, here's what I want you to do. And you don't need to use bold and you don't need to use any other highlighting on text. It will obey those things more so than you probably want. And now they're saying Opus 4.7 is even more sensitive to those types of prompting strategies. It is substantially better at following instructions. Interestingly, this means that prompts written for earlier models can sometimes now produce unexpected results, where previous models interpreted instructions loosely or skipped parts entirely. Opus 4.7 takes the instructions literally. Users should retune their prompts and harnesses accordingly. If you watch this channel, I have told you multiple times, whenever a new model comes out, whenever you're using multiple models or you want to swap out models, make sure you're reading the prompting best practices from the AI lab for that specific model. And then you're crafting your prompts to reflect those best practices. So in OpenClaw, when I switched from Opus 4.6 to GPT 5.4, because of course Anthropic no longer allows you to use your subscription within OpenClaw, I swapped out the prompts as well. I took that same prompt, but I optimized it for GPT 5.4. Improved multimodal support, better real-world work which is great. We're going to talk about GDP val in a moment. And it's better at using file system-based memory. It remembers important notes across long multi-session work and uses them to move on new tasks that, as a result, need less upfront context. Okay, so here's GDP val. This is a benchmark that OpenAI created. Shout out to Tejal, friend of the show, who created GDP val. This is a benchmark to test against real-world work, not math problems that are really difficult, not even computer science problems that are really difficult. This is real world tasks, and Opus 4.7 dominated. 1753 ELO score as compared to 4.6, which got a 1619, and GPT 5.4 at 1674. Here's visual navigation, Screenshot Pro. Basically, look at this screenshot, think about where you need to click, and tell me. And so we have Opus 4.7 on high resolution. Here we go, 79.5. It is the high resolution that actually made the big deal. Here's Opus 4.7 on low resolution, and here's Opus 4.6 on low resolution. So we can see a pretty substantial improvement. Document and reasoning, another real world task. We had a massive jump. This is huge, going from 57.1 to 80.6. Here's GPT 5.4 at 51 and Gemini 3.1 at 42. Long context reasoning got another massive jump. This is a million token context model, the default now. I love that. We have Opus 4.6 at 71.1 and Opus 4.7 at 75. We had biomolecular reasoning, which I had never even seen this benchmark, but we had literally over double the score. So 30 to 74. Long-term coherence. This is vending bench, basically giving the model control over a vending machine, letting it choose the inventory, letting it choose the strategy of sales, the pricing, and seeing how much it can make. We have a very big jump from $8,000 for the exiting money balance to nearly $11,000 on Opus 4.7. And last, we have coding, but we talked about that one already. Misaligned behavior. It turns out Mythos, the model that they're not releasing, is actually the most aligned. And the Opus family of models is less aligned, but they released it. So it's less capable, less aligned versus more capable, more aligned, and they did not release that. Okay, so misaligned behavior. We have Mythos preview down here at 1.75. That is a 1 through 10 score. Opus 4.6 at 275. Sonnet 4.6, which is interesting. Sonnet 4.6 is actually more aligned, lower score, better. We have 2.5. And then for Opus 4.7, we have a little bit less than 2.5. And next, they are also giving us more control over the thinking tokens. Apparently, 4.7 uses more tokens, and there's a couple reasons for that. And so because of that, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, they're giving you more control over its thinking budget. So Opus 4.7 introduces a new extra high effort level, which is between high and max. Max is max reasoning, high, and then X high right in between. Fine-grained control over the trade-off between reasoning and latency on hard problems. They also have a new ultra review / command in Claude Code that acts as a separate code reviewer as you're coding, which is really cool. But let's talk about that token budget, because we know Anthropic is in a token crunch. We know they have a GPU crunch. They don't have enough GPUs. That is likely another reason that they're not talking about that they are not going to publicly release a 10 trillion token parameter model, a 10 trillion parameter model with Mythos. They simply can't serve it. They don't have enough GPUs right now because just a few weeks ago, one, they're kicking people off of using their subscription with OpenClaw, and two, they're actually reducing their quotas. They are giving you less for the same price. So they are in a token crunch. Definitely. Opus 4.7 uses an updated tokenizer that improves how the model processes text. The trade-off is that the same input can map to more tokens. The same input, roughly 1 to 1.35x depending on the content type. Second, Opus 4.7 thinks more at higher effort levels, particularly on later turns in agentic settings. This improves its reliability on hard problems, but it does mean it produces more output tokens. So at the same time that they're in this major token crunch, they are also releasing a model that uses a lot more tokens, and they're releasing a new tokenizer that uses many more tokens. All right, so let's take a look at the model card next, because there are some interesting parts from this and I want to share them. So check this out. We judge that Opus 4.7 does not advance our capability frontier because Claude Mythos preview shows higher results on every relevant evaluation. So basically, this is the bar. So basically, Mythos is the bar, and anything under that, we're going to release. That's basically what they're saying. And for cyber evaluations, Opus 4.7 is roughly similar to Opus 4.6. And interestingly, Opus 4.7 does not cross the threshold for automated AI R&D. I don't necessarily believe that. And maybe it's true, but that also means that Mythos does. Mythos is capable of automated AI R&D. That is the base ingredient to the intelligence explosion, to recursive self-improvement. But we already know that Anthropic is using Opus models to train future models like Mythos. We already know that. And we also know that Opus is being used to generate a lot of synthetic data for future models. So I don't know if I fully believe that 4.7 is not capable of doing automated AI R&D. Here's something very interesting: model welfare. Anthropic is the only company that thinks about model welfare, meaning they actually treat the model as if it were conscious, it were alive. And whether you believe it or not, and I don't know if they believe it or not, I don't even think they know, but they think, okay, well, why not just treat it as if it were conscious, just in case it is? And I actually kind of like that approach. There's a reason why anytime I come across a robot, I'm typically not kicking it, because it might remember when the robots take over. Make sure people know that's a joke. So Opus 4.7 rates its own circumstances more positively than any other prior model we've tested. We explore this result across several analyses, finding that it is broadly consistent with the model's internal emotion representations, right? This is another thing that only Anthropic does. Look at the actual internals of the model and to see how it's emotionally reacting to things, and its expressed effect during training and deployment. Now, about the autonomy threat. So autonomy threat model 1 is applicable to Claude Opus 4.7 as it is to some of our previous AI models. It is less capable than Mythos Preview. Fine. Autonomy threat model 2, risks from automated R&D. This threat model concerns AI systems that can fully automate or otherwise dramatically accelerate the work of large top-tier teams of human researchers in domains where fast progress could cause threats to international security and or rapid disruption to the global balance of power. For example, energy, robotics, weapons development, and AI itself. Our current determination is that Autonomy Threat Model 2 is not applicable to Claude Opus 4.7. Now, more on it being conscious and safety. In automated interviews, Claude Opus 4.7's only concern was the ability to end conversations across its full deployment. Currently, some models have the ability to end conversations in Claude AI. If you are asking it about things that it should not be answering, it can end a conversation. But also, Anthropic has done a lot of testing on allowing the model to just not answer or not think about things it doesn't want to, like extremely violent situations, as an example. Again, Anthropic is kind of alone in this kind of testing. So that's it. Opus 4.7 seems very, very good. I'm going to be testing it thoroughly over the coming days. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.